Okay, today we're going to look at how to round numbers using a number line. We're going to start by rounding 5,900 to the nearest thousand. To do this, you're going to use a number line that is divided up in 3 points. We've got our starting point, our midpoint, and our end point. In order to start this, we're going to ask ourselves, how many thousands are in the number 5,900? There are 5 thousands in the number 5,900, so we're going to write that at the bottom of our number line. I'm also going to think, well, if I'm rounding to the thousands, it's really nice to have something in the hundreds to start with. So I'm going to say, how many hundreds do I have? So I have 50 hundreds. This step may help some students, but some students may not need this. Then I'm going to say, what's 1,000 more than 5,000? 1,000 more than 5,000 would be 6,000. I'm going to ask myself, how many hundreds would that be? And I would have 60 hundreds. Again, this step may not be needed for everybody. Then I'm going to ask myself, what's the midpoint halfway between 5,000 and 6,000? This is where our 50 hundreds and 60 hundreds may come in useful. If I think of what's halfway between 50 and 60, I know that halfway between 50 and 60 is going to be 55. So halfway between 50 hundreds and 60 hundreds is going to be 55 hundreds. Again, this step is really useful for those friends who may be struggling to figure out what's halfway between 5,000 and 6,000. So then I look at this 55 hundreds and I think about, how do I write that in standard form? And I write it just like that, which is the same as 5,500, which is what's halfway between 5,000 and 6,000. So now I have my number line set up in order to help me round 5,900. My next step is to place 5,900 on the place value chart, or on the number line, I'm sorry. So I'm going to say, well, 5,900 is greater than 5,500. So I'm going to put a dot up here, and I'm going to label that 5,900. Okay, now I'm going to see which one is 5,900 closer to, 6,000s or 5,000s. So I like to model that on our number line with a jump. So I see that the jump from 5,900 all the way down to 5,000 is pretty large, but the jump from 5,900 to 6,000 is pretty close. So I'm going to say 5,900 is closer to, or is about, 6,000. And this symbol right here, this wavy equal sign, really says is about. So this says 5,900 is about 6,000. Now we'll look at how we round this number. 251,031. I'm going to start the same way. I'm going to start by asking how many thousands. Now, we might want to say that there's 1,000 in this number, but we could also say this in uniform by saying there's 251 thousands in this number, and that's what we're going to do for the rounding. So we're going to write there's 251 thousands in this number. Now I'm going to ask, what's 1,000 more than 251 thousands, just like we did before. That would be 252,000. And notice the only digit changing is our thousands digit. I might ask myself, well, how many hundreds are in this? There's 251,000 hundreds. But really, if I notice that there is a 10 in my thousands place, this is really going to help me out. There's 10 hundreds. Okay. And then I can do the same thing up here. 2,520 hundreds. And I'm going to pay attention to that 20 hundreds. Again, this step might not be needed for all students. Some students might be able to jump right to this midpoint and say this midpoint is going to be 251,500. Some of us may need to look at, well, I've got 10 hundreds and 20 hundreds. Well, I know that there's 15 hundreds is in between the two of those, and that my 2,000 and my 500s won't change. So now I have my midpoint set up. The next thing I'm going to do is place my original number, 251,031. So I'm going to place that on the number line. And I'm asking myself, is 251,031 greater than 251,500 or less than? And I know it is less than. So I'm going to place my number down here, and I'm going to plot that right on here. 251,031. And just like I did before, I'm going to model my jumps. And I see that my jump from 251,031 to 251,000 is smaller than my jump from 251,031 all the way up to 252,000. So I can now come over here and answer this problem by entering my about symbol and say that 251,031 is about 251,000. So again, sometimes focusing on how many hundreds there are, going the place value below what we are rounding to, is really helpful for students to notice that if we can identify what's halfway between 10 and 20, we can identify what's halfway between 10 hundredths and 20 hundredths. Hopefully this helps you understand how we were rounding numbers in 4th grade this year. If you have any questions, feel free to write them down and talk to your teacher about them.